you've got this whole situation that's going on in Venezuela. And what's so interesting is we did a rapid fire toward the end of the year, remember?
Yes.
And I said, hey, do you think there's going to be a war? And you said, no, I don't think there's going to be a war. I do think there's going to be a conflict. Man, this was like option C, D, or E, right?
Do I think this is a good thing? Unequivocally, 100% yes. This is 100% the right thing. 100% this needs to be done. The guy didn't win the last election. We knew he stole the last election.
The United States is essentially acting like a bully from a smaller country that's not even population-wise the size of California, and they go and bully them. I don't like it because it sets a bad precedent.
I think, though, and now Trump's going to make moves like this. Obviously, it's a second term, and get over it. He has a mandate. He won. He has every right to do what he's doing, meaning not right to do it, but he has every moral authority, I guess, however the wording should be, to do this because of the way he was elected. He wasn't elected on a shoestring. He was elected on a supermajority in all causes. He won all the swing states. He won all the battle states. He won the popular vote. He won the electoral college.
He gave a different message. And he talked about the fact that it was America first. He's going against his entire base. But so keep going.
Just because he had the money
Why
and the
is
power,
it the United States business, though? Why is it the United States business? It's not our business. It's not.
Number one, because we're getting all their migrants, which is affecting us. Number two, it's in our hemisphere. Number three,
8,000 people. I mean, if they go through the whole immigration process, we get migrants from all over the world. The United States has long been known as the place of immigrants and migration. What? In which situation has the United States ever gone to a country and forced regime change and it turned out well? Please enlighten me. And you look at the records. Now, let me be very clear again. I am not suggesting that there is not an existence of fraud that's taking place there. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying, though, is that there has been a very intentional, united effort to make the situation look as if the governor wasn't aware of this years and years ago and hasn't taken steps to take steps and to take action to reduce the fraud and to eliminate the fraud.
He hasn't.
And one of the daycares that Nick Shirley went to, many of them, he went during hours where people aren't just going to let you walk into their facilities. If you show up at 11 o'clock saying, hey, and you've got 4 or 5 people with you and they've got cameras, you're not going to let them into the daycare. There's protection issues that exist there. And so the way in which he went into it was very, very problematic from the outset.
What makes it an issue about Somalians is that when you look at all the fraud cases in Minnesota, 80% of them are by Somalians. So that's why people are calling out the Somalian refugee population, because when you look at the data factually and go, okay, 100 fraud cases were committed. What's the demographics? And then you start breaking it down by groups, right? Then all of a sudden what tends to happen is 80% of the fraud, or 8 out of 100, were committed by someone who's a Somalian refugee. So that's when it becomes about race. So when you look at all the facts go together and they create a very, very daunting story. And then when you look at one of the final pieces and you look at the most amount of revenue that contributes to the GDP of Somalia, guess what? It's not made in Somalia. It's money coming into Somalia from America. If you make over $100,000, you're not getting a subsidy. So, I mean, 100%. If you're making...
But that's not our issue, though, because we can afford it.
Right. But here's the thing. If you're making over $100,000 a year, and you're living in California, you're broke. You're poverty. So
I agree. So, sure.
We need to redistrict. We need to reassess what poverty is in America nowadays, because those rules changed post-COVID. So if you're making $100,000, you're barely going to survive, and you don't qualify for a subsidy.
If we were to pay our workers what a software developer would get paid, we would have to charge our families $30,000 a month for someone to come into their home.
Wow. And see, that's where
you see what I'm
the
saying?
government should be. Yeah, see, that's where the government should be subsidizing properly. The government should be taking sovereign tax wealth that comes in, not even tax wealth. We don't even need taxes in America. The government should be taking sovereign GDP that gets generated because we have excess and take that and reinvest in the country.
Yes,
Reinvest
and
in
it's
these
and
types
the
of
people
programs.
that
And
have
entrepreneurs
put their
like
blood,
you,
sweat, and
entrepreneurs
tears
like
into this
you,
country.
vetted citizen entrepreneurs with a proven track record of successful business like you, Len. Anyone living in America that's a citizen should go without healthcare. I'm sorry. There's just,
100%.
it's just regardless whether you did it to yourself or not because you drank and you smoked and you whatever it is you did. It's still fundamentally we make so much money in this country. You should not be denied that. Just like you shouldn't go hungry in America either. There's just no way. There's so much money here.
Welcome to the Family Office. Planning for the people who matter most.
Holy, you know what balls? Like
Yeah.
I can't even.
Where do
I don't
we
even
start,
know where.
man? Because
I don't even know where to start right now.
Right. We meet on Thursdays and we get together for our conversation on a weekly basis. And then the following day, it's just bombs, like literally and figuratively. And now you've got this whole situation that's going on in Venezuela. And what's so interesting is we did a rapid fire toward the end of the year, remember?
Yes.
And
Yes.
I said, hey, do you think there's going to be a war? And you said, no, I don't think there's going to be a war.
I think there's gonna be a
I do think
conflict.
there's going to be a conflict. Man, this was like option C, D, or E, right? So, all right. So, I wanted to call you, man, but I really wanted to capture this organically on air just to see. I mean, obviously, when we're talking about, a situation where potentially there could be war, it's not a laughing matter, but I'm very, very interested to hear your perspective because, I think there's good arguments on both sides, but what's your perspective on the whole thing in Venezuela with Maduro?
Okay, so I don't want to. I think probably today, because we have a few other things we're going to talk about today, and I think we're going to probably have to. We'll see how it goes with time, but I definitely wanted to dive because I think the biggest things happening right now are obviously, and we're going to talk about Minnesota today. We're going to talk about Minnesota, Tim Walz. I mean, even today there's breaking news with Tim Walz, and I want to get into that as well, as I'm sure you saw. And then Nick Shirley and everything that's going on there, and that might not allow us time to get into maybe the subsidies
some of the other
happening
topics
and something because now adding on to what happened over the weekend on the 2nd, right? It happened on Saturday, right? No, did it happen on the 3rd? It happened on the 3rd, right? It happened Saturday. Yeah, it was on Saturday. Happening over there, obviously with Venezuela and everything. I think it's just right for us to kind of getting to all that. So I thought there was going to be a conflict with Venezuela. I didn't ever think there was going to be a war, so I'm not surprised. But I am so shocked right now, and I think the rest of the world is shocked because, and I'm going to talk about what this is. Now, before I talk about it, do I think this is a good thing? Unequivocally, 100% yes. This is 100% the right thing. 100% this needed to be done. The guy didn't win the last election. We knew he stole the last election. I think it's comical how massive players and major U.S. representatives on the Democratic side are responding, specifically Chuck Schumer and a few other guys that I can't remember the name. I think it's absolutely hysterical how they're responding, especially given 2 or 3 years ago, when Maduro did not step down and clearly lost that election in 2024. I think it's just hilarious because they are completely bitter, completely pissed, and completely mad. And here's what I'll say about it. I don't think this could have happened any other way to prevent it from being a war or prevent it from being a conflict. And whether or not that goes that route down the line is here to be determined. But so far, I know we're only the 3rd or 2nd day in after this happened. Maybe we're less than 72 hours away ago from this happening. So far, so good.
Okay.
Nobody was killed. No civilians were killed. It was a clean extraction. I mean, if that's what you want to call it. But I mean, by and large, the guy had many chances. I think there was a lot of going on between him, and I think he had a chance to end it and walk away from it and go wherever he wanted. And obviously now Trump went in there and swooped them up. I'm amazed that the U.S. has, or anybody by that matter, not take the U.S. off the table. I'm just amazed that any country, now given it's Venezuela, but still, this is crazy. The fact that any country possesses the technical, military, and logistical prowess to do that type of operation is just absolutely mind-boggling. To me, it's just crazy. I think this represents one of the most massive keys to a puzzle that I didn't even see coming. But I think this represents something that's going to bring it's going to bring a lot of stability and a lot of peace. I know there's people that have an issue with it, with the way it was done, but I don't think there's any other way that it could have been done without killing people or having a war or having catastrophe. And I think that from a geopolitical standpoint, it sends the very strong message to China, Russia, Iran, and all these other people that, bro, stop now and sit down and pay attention and cooperate. I just think that's it. I just don't know any other way. I'm shocked by it. Now, as an American waking up to this, I think it's a good thing.
Interesting. I had a feeling you would see it that way. Very interesting.
I don't see any problem with it because of the way it was done.
I completely disagree with you. I completely disagree with you.
Okay, let's go.
So here's the issue. So, okay, let me pre-frame what I'm going to say with this very important point. That if I were a citizen of Venezuela under the dictatorship of Maduro, and I elected Edmundo Gonzalez to be the president, and it's widely known that he is the de facto president, even though he's not serving, he was the one elected, I would be very happy that Maduro was gone. Okay, so let's take a pause and push that to the side. The fact that the United States has the audacity to go to a sovereign country and extract the leader there, especially considering the fact that they said, we are America first. We don't want any wars. We don't want we don't want to be dealing with the affairs of other places. And for this to happen, because here's the problem. We made the mistake before the Trump administration, or in between both administrations, actually before both of them, of dealing with Iraq and going in there. And when we took Saddam Hussein out, the people were dancing in the streets. They were excited because they believed that the regime change would completely change the trajectory of their economy, of their political process, of democracy, and all of that. And none of it happened. And it so turned out to be one of the worst and most expensive fiascos in the history of wars. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing is let's deal with this whole issue of a country's sovereignty. Let's say, for example, President Xi did exactly the same thing. He was, a dictator, evil dictator, and pushed opioids and different types of drugs into the United States and all of that. There's no way the United States would go in there because the power and the military might they have would prevent him from doing that. So the United States is essentially acting like a bully from a smaller country that's not even population wise the size of California, and they go and bully them. I don't like it because it sets a bad precedent. Because here's the thing. The ends doesn't justify the means. What do I mean by that? The ends is that Maduro should not be in office. Okay. But the way in which one goes in to extract him, he was kidnapped from his own country, which is a sovereign nation. And we don't have the right to go and do that. Now, there's a part of me that wonders, okay, they took his wife also. Was there this art of the deal going on behind back doors and all of these things? Because, you have all of these cartel leaders that would have taken him out if he would have opened the door to the country. So maybe Maduro say, you know what, Trump, I'm going to put on a strong man's perspective and I'm going to just open the door when you guys come and, allow you to take me out. Now, obviously that is a theory not based in fact. I don't even know if I believe that's true. I'm just conjecturing here. But let me end up with this point, because I certainly want to talk about oil. I want to talk about strategy. I want to talk about war, all of these other economic policies and things like that. But I want to end with this point, which is at the end of the day, regardless of my belief about Maduro's legitimacy as a president or my belief as the quality of leadership that he provided or how he ran the country down, he was a bad person and a bad leader, and he's not good for the country. All of that being said, that still does not give us the right to go in and extract him, because there were other motivations behind it. And who's to stop now Putin from continuing his crusade in Ukraine? And who's to stop President Xi from going into Taiwan and saying, hey, you guys did it. Now, obviously, with the United States and the United Nations and the possibility for nuclear war and all of that, because, when you attack one UN country, you essentially attack all of them. So I understand there are different consequences, but you've got to be very careful, because we're on a very, very slippery slope towards World War III, my opinion.
So first and foremost, I thought about that. Because I'm not about wars. I can't stand it. And let's be honest here. Let's look at the receipts. There's a lot of wars under democratic presidents, right? Obama was at war.
Yep.
Bush was at war. Clinton was at war. Biden, all these guys, they love that stuff. Sure. They love it. Let's just be clear on that one. Trump, no wars, nothing.
But a lot of conflicts and a lot of skirmishes
okay, cool. But
I understand. I'm not trying to take sides here. All I'm just saying, let's keep the same energy on both sides.
Of course. I think, though, and now Trump's going to make moves like this, obviously. It's a second term, and get over it. He has a mandate. He won. He has every right to do what he's doing, meaning not right to do it, but he has every moral authority, I guess, however the wording should be, to do this because of the way he was elected. He wasn't elected on a shoestring. He was elected on a supermajority in all causes. And we know that. We could go down that. Lest people forget. He won all the swing states. He won all the battle states. He won the popular vote. He won the Electoral College.
He gave a different message. And he talked about the fact that it was America first. He's going against his entire base. But so keep going.
So let's take a look at this real quick. In regards to, the U.S. going down and doing what it did, a couple things. I want to talk about the regime change kind of issue. And then obviously I want to talk about, U.S. doing it. I like the fact that the U.S. just did do it as an act of war or any of that kind of situation. I like how the U.S. did it in regards to charging him as a criminal, because he is. And that's what they did. They perp walked him. They brought him in and charged him in the state of New York as a criminal for the criminal things he did against the United States. Now, the reason why they can do that is because he is not a duly elected president of any state, of any country. So to afford him the rights to say, well, that's wrong, you shouldn't have done that, that's a sovereign nation. You're right, it is a sovereign nation. But he's not recognized as a sovereign ruler of that nation. He's recognized as a citizen, maybe, of that nation, right? But he is not recognized as an authoritative power. He's recognized as a narcotic or narco drug lord dictatorship who stole the ability to hold governance over that sovereign nation, that which is Venezuela, right? So we have every right to go pursue him as an international criminal. I mean, Biden set the precedents. He put a bounty, him and the Kamala, in the end of their term, put a $25 million bounty on him. Said, hey, 25 million US to whoever brings this guy to us. Cool. See, the problem I have with that is, yeah, we should go get him. But the problem I have with that is that, again, everyone over there doesn't have a spine to go do the work. Classic Democrat. We want to complain about everything, but we don't want to ever offer solutions or actually go like this and roll up our sleeves and do the work. That's why we hate Trump, because Trump said, all right, cool, I'm going to come here, I'm going to do this. You guys said 25 million, presidential act said $25 million reward on this guy, which the previous administration did not recognize him as the sovereign leader, and 48 other countries didn't recognize him as the sovereign leader. So therefore, yeah, we do have every right to go in there and swoop him up, because he's the one who also stole hundreds of millions of dollars, or whatever the number is, from Chevron that we invested there. Chevron has contracts with Venezuela to build infrastructure and maintain infrastructure, because Chevron's the only people that want to refine their heavy tard or heavy oil, whatever, crude, right? You know what Maduro and Hugo Chavez did and have been doing? They stole all of those assets and said, screw your contract, and redistributed those assets to God knows who's. They said they did it to the Venezuelans, but ask every
China
Venezuelan.
and Iran, yeah, for
to
sure.
whoever it was, right? So of course they committed a criminal act in the United States. Biden says, oh, talk like the most of his cohorts do, just hot air while they get rich, right? And then Trump comes in and says, bet. And by the way, Trump was scolded by Schumer and all these other guys. Why don't you get Maduro out of office? He was scolded for not doing anything about getting Maduro out in his first term. Guy comes in and executes the most flawless, like Mortal Kombat, flawless victory, fatality. Right. That's exactly what happened on Saturday.
Okay.
Everyone woke up and said that. Now, in regards to, and I'll wrap it up and throw back over to you, Len, because I thought long and hard about this, because I went, regime change doesn't work. It never works. It never works unless you go back to the days of British imperialism, where you just destroy the indigenous people, because that's how you create an imperialistic environment, which is kind of what's happening right now with all the Muslims coming to all these countries, especially Germany. It's happening mad in Germany. But here's why it's different, and why you can't, and why I don't think you're going to have the outcome that you had in Afghanistan and Iraq and all those other areas. Number one, it's true. We had assets there, we had investments there, and Nicolas Maduro screwed over Chevron. That's a fact. We didn't have any of that going on legitimately over in Iraq. And number two, Iraq's not even in our hemisphere. We have no business being over there anyways. Those guys have been killing each other and blowing each other up since the beginning of time. We should have left that crap alone. I understand militarily wise, maybe vendetta wise, whatever we did, 9/11, whatever the excuse was. I think it was total horse shit. We should have never been there. Dick Cheney should have stayed out of it, whatever it is, God rest his soul. The difference between Iraq and Venezuela is Venezuela already is electing democratically. They want to be. They used to be. They used to be a preeminent democratic country before a socialist named Hugo Chavez came in and turned the country into socialism on the premise that he got lucky and he nationalized the oil business when oil spiked. As he got out, oil tanked, Maduro took over, the country's a shit-tard, is in shits. And they're both dictators and socialism doesn't work. 8,000 people migrated because of this government to the US. That's a massive problem for us. So we installed a temporary president that was elected, whether she was elected or not, I have to do more research on that. But we put their own in there to lead the country. Hey, we're going to help you. We're leading it. We're running the country, but lead it. We want to bring back the democratically elected leaders and probably hold free democratic elections and let the Venezuelan people govern themselves and help them in the sense of keeping narco dictators out of there. That's what the U.S. is doing. I don't think that we're going to get involved in regime change. I think all we did was help the Venezuelan people get unoccupied by a terrorist that was there that stole their sovereignty. So I don't look at it as the United States went in and invaded a sovereign country and violated their sovereignty. I don't look at it at all. Because their leader that they took out of there, the guy that they took out, Maduro, he wasn't their sovereign leader anyways. So he wasn't. He doesn't get those. He does not afford those privileges. So to me, the U.S. unkidnapped Venezuela and said, all right, cool. We took out the main guy. The other guys are there, like the defense minister and all that stuff. He wasn't elected. How can he be? He's not sovereign. He wasn't elected. He is an unrecognized dictator that was not sovereignly elected by the sovereign people of Venezuela, who's constantly robbing the resources of them. So if I'm Venezuelan, I'm happy. If I'm American, I'm happy. I think this creates a bilateral trade opportunity. This also allows America to invest in Venezuela, and it allows us to put a middle finger to all the other countries that want to say, oh, we don't want to cooperate with America. Well, guess what? America's back, baby. And we're going to go find the partners in the countries that want to work with us. And historically speaking, anytime a country works with us like that, on good terms, they do better. Panama's doing well. There's no issues with Panama.
All right.
We built the Panama Canal. So I'll throw it back over to you, Len, but I don't think those issues will. Now, if they do, I will wear the T-shirt that says "Bring back Maduro," like all these retards that are protesting in the streets everywhere.
I'm not here to argue for Maduro. I'm not, because that's why I said that.
But a lot of politicians seem to be arguing for him, and that's weird.
I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case. I think the issue is this. If you Google who is Venezuela's president, it will say Nicolas Maduro. Now, does that mean that he's recognized as the president? No. Does that mean that that's the person the people want as the president? No. But the fact is that for the United States to go and take the person who is positioned on a sovereign nation's, in their presidential palace, wherever that guy lives, he's the person that's recognized as the person. Okay, so we've established that. Now let's talk about the other issue that I have. Hold on, Chris.
Before you do that, one example, Len. Okay. But I don't want to lose track of the sovereignty thing.
Make it quick.
I'm going to make it quick. If I'm a terrorist, let's pretend for a second that I am from Austin Powers of the movie, and $1 million, whatever his name was, right? I'm that guy, okay? And I go over and I take over Somalia. And I install myself as the de facto dictator leader in Somalia. That's okay? And then Google says, well, Chris Philp is the president of Somalia. He wasn't elected. He stole an election. Everyone recognizes it, but we're going to say he is just because he had the money.
Why is it the United States business, though? Why is it the United States business? It's not our business. It's not. Number one, because we're getting all their migrants, which is affecting us. Number two, it's in our hemisphere. Number three, 8,000 people. I mean, if they go through the whole immigration process, we get migrants from all over the world. The United States has long been known as the place of immigrants and migration because of the opportunity here. If the opportunity was better in Russia, the Venezuelan folks would have gone there. So I understand where you're going with that argument.
It's easier to go up a landmass than to go over landmass. And let's be honest, no one wants to go to Russia because it's a communist country too.
Okay, but if Mexico had the economy that the United States had, they would certainly go to Mexico because then you don't have to worry about a language barrier and all of that. That's the point.
But they don't. Because this narco dictator ran as well.
Okay, so here's the current
Mexican president is corrupt too.
So Chris, then why wouldn't the United States go in after the Mexican government as well? Because there's narco dictators that take over in many countries. Let me finish, brother, because your point, you're taking talking points from Fox and Newsmax and all that stuff.
Come on, Len. I don't even watch them.
Let me tell you, this is the problem. This is the problem is that, again, I'm not recognizing Maduro as a legitimate leader and as a legitimate president. The issue that I have is that it's not our business. It's not our business. If I was your neighbor and I was beating on my wife and all of these things, it's not your responsibility to come in and strong man me and move me out of my own house. You call the police for that. And so I think that a different response should have been, okay, let's take a look as the United Nations. I'm getting ready to tell you a solution. So let's say the United Nations gets together and says, look, this is a regime that was democratically elected Edmundo Gonzalez. And as United Nations, we come together and we facilitate a fair election process to make sure the right person is in office. You can't just unilaterally break into somebody's country and take the person that's placed there. Yeah, well, but he's the person that if everybody
that wasn't elected,
he was elected, but he was elected improperly. I'll give you all of that, but it's still, Chris, it still does not give you the right to go and impose your will on somebody else. Because look, what is President Xi a Democratic leader? Answer my question.
No. But
is he responsible for the deaths of thousands of people potentially because of fentanyl? Yes. Why doesn't the United States go into China and take him then and bring him to justice?
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. All right, Mexico's president was elected by the Mexican people in an open, honest election. So far, from what we know. Okay, let's say we do get together and get with the UN or whoever, which is useless. As we all know, they're useless. I mean, they don't do anything. They're useless. The budget confirms if we're just strictly looking at budgeting, they're useless. You got to agree with me on that one. They don't pay
I will give you the purpose of their existence is great, but the execution of their existence right now is terrible. I'll give you that.
Okay, good. But let's say they did that. Okay,
you're talking about the UN getting together to make sure they have a democratically okay, got it.
Number one, what's the solution? And then number two, what makes us think they haven't been doing this already? Because they've been trying to get this guy out of office since he's been in office, and they've been trying to get this guy to turn over the election since he stole it in 2024. So if they do get together, number one, what's the solution? And if they did, number two, they probably already did this. They're never getting anything done. I mean, again, here's the reason why none of them will ever get anything done. And it's proven. It's exactly why Ukraine and Russia are still at war. They're spineless. And the reason why Ukraine and Russia are still at war is because Zelensky is crying and he doesn't want to give up the power. Because Zelensky knows once war is over, he's done for. The guy's done for. So I don't want to get onto Ukraine because that's a totally different thing. But yeah, exactly. We can't go to war with Russia. We can't uninstall Russia, even though a lot of people in the world would want to uninstall him because let's face it, he is what he is. And he's really not even that bad. But the reality is we can't uninstall him because if we
I'm talking about President Xi. I think Xi is much more of an external threat than Putin.
I think Xi, big time, 100%. Look, we all know China steals.
Go take him.
We know that.
Give him the perp walk. Exactly.
We can't. There's no way we can. You know why? Exactly. But here's the reason why. He is officially elected by the Chinese people. The Chinese people officially have elected him. They ran, however they do that there. They have done that. They are okay with him being president. They're okay with that. Maduro, Venezuela does not want him to be president. By and large, still, when you look at China's China's the second largest economy in the world. So when you look at, it's impossible to say that because in the context, because most people would say, yeah, but even though China is what it is, China is still a net positive and a net contributor to the world, economically, socially, culturally, all of those.
I agree with all of that.
So to uninstall him from president is irresponsible and is act of war. To uninstall a unlegitimate, unelected narco dictator from a country that is dying and is falling apart and is losing immigrants, that's a different context. And I think if given the chance, China or Russia would probably have done the same thing, either in that way or in a different way within the next 3 to 5 years. Because all those guys, they're frothing at the mouth.
That's not their MO. That's not how
all these guys in Europe and all these guys in all the other continents besides North America and South America have salivated for years, for a century. Centuries they've salivated over the problem that they have, which is America is ocean locked away from them. And they hate it and they can't stand it. So to infiltrate South America, because Mexico is a garbage dump and all the other countries underneath it are a garbage dump economically, and they know that, in order for China and Russia and all these guys to gain prowess and to take America and to take away America's biggest advantage, which is ocean locked away from these people that can't get peace in their head straight, they've got to do it any way possible. So how do they do it? Oh, we got a friend over here, Nicolas Maduro. China's friends with him. Russia's friend with him. Iran's friend with him. All of our adversaries that don't agree with our way of life, spiritually, financially, economically, culturally, they all love this guy. and they're all friends with this guy. So of course, they're finding a way. Let Maduro do whatever he's going to do. They let this guy sabotage himself because they know eventually when the country collapses or he gets killed by somebody else or gets poisoned by somebody else, they're going to come in and go and take that and go, nice. Now we've got a way to get to America by land. You don't think that's a 50-year to 100-year plan? Or a 20-year plan?
I think that it would be a smart and prudent thing to do from their perspective, no doubt, because Venezuela is just a hop, skip, and a jump away from the United States. When you look at
ocean-wise
of South America, Cuba. Yeah, sure, absolutely. Now, but here's the other issue, though, and we touched on this. I want to dive a little bit deeper into this. In which situation has the United States ever gone to a country and forced regime change, and it turned out well? Please enlighten me.
I can't say that has happened successfully anywhere, but what I can say is that this is different from regime change. This is not regime change.
How so? This is exactly regime change.
Because what we've done, what it is. No, because here's the thing. When we go into Venezuela, we didn't go in there and say, all right, cool, and put boots on the ground. We just simply got rid of a guy that was not there legally. We took him out. And then immediately when he was out, I don't remember that lady's name. But
are you talking about Delcy Rodriguez?
Is she's the temporary president?
She's the vice president right now who condemned the actions of the United States.
All right, so she's in charge right now.
Correct.
I think what's going to happen ultimately as this progresses, that already is a good sign to me. Because we just could have sent a U.S. envoy there with diplomats and gone, okay, here's the de facto government. And we didn't do that. Because you saw a lot of that in Iraq, right?
Okay.
We have diplomats there and all that crap there was happening. We haven't done that. What instead we've done is we put one of their own in there, and we're probably working out a way to make it safe to bring back the democratically elected leader who's in Denmark or something like that, Netherlands, something like that, right?
Okay.
Bring her back. Because remember, Len, we still got to get rid of the Secretary of Defense or whoever, those 3 or 4 other guys, 4 other people there
who are loyal to Maduro. Okay.
Right.
So
it's not safe.
Yeah. So you and I will agree to disagree on the extraction, kidnapping, liberation, however, whatever camp you fall in, you'll call it something different. Okay, so we're going to.
I think it's a liberation of Venezuela.
Okay, and I say it's the kidnapping of a person from a sovereign nation, but we'll table that for now. Okay, so now let's talk about next.
I think it's an arrest of a criminal from a sovereign nation.
You can call it whatever you want. I believe. I believe. But here's the thing. I want to turn the conversation just a little bit, because I think there are some places strategically that probably you and I can align with in terms of next steps. So let's talk about a couple of different people and what are some possibilities that would make the most sense, and see where we come and either agree or disagree on those. Okay, so you've got Delcy Rodriguez, who is second in charge. Now, she was around during the time that Hugo Chavez was around and when Machado was in office. So obviously she's the person there right now. And so that's the person that you said is a good idea for her to be in office. I disagree. I'll tell you why. Now,
I don't necessarily think she should be in office. I think that they should either bring back the gal that was elected.
Okay, but it was a guy. His name is Edmundo Gonzalez.
I thought a lady won.
Okay, so who you're talking about is Maria Corina Machado.
She won the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yes, and she's a person that she united the opposition. And the people elected Edmundo Gonzalez in December 2024. So
then what we ought to do is bring all these guys back in and hold an election again.
Yes, I agree with that.
That's what needs to happen. Now, if Trump doesn't do that, then I'm going to be in your camp fully, Len. I'm going to go, this is bullshit. This is freaking regime change. Get this shit out of here, because we don't want that. Nobody wants that.
Okay, so we agree on that. Now, okay, so let me ask you this. Let's say that Venezuela was Chad in Africa, or Uganda in Africa, okay? And everything was exactly the same. Drugs, the undemocratically elected, quote unquote, leader. Everything was exactly the same. But in this case, Uganda or Chad on the continent of Africa didn't have any oil reserves. It was just wasteland and, desert and all that, which is not the case, by the way, with those two countries. But I'm saying, hypothetically speaking, if the United States has no interest in what's going on there with regard to what's under the ground with the rare earth minerals and the crude oil and all of that, do you think that the United States would have invaded Venezuela if all of those circumstances weren't there?
Okay, this is interesting, and I like this. I like where you're going with this. Okay, let me frame it this way, and maybe I'm on the same path as you.
Okay.
If this was happening in, let's say, Chad, and there's no resources there, none of that stuff, and
correct,
and geographically speaking, Chad is where Chad is, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Chad's in a totally different hemisphere.
It's in Africa.
Okay, perfect. Then no, we wouldn't have gone there, and we shouldn't have gone there. And here's the reason why.
Okay.
Here's the reason why.
Shouldn't. Interesting. Okay.
Wouldn't and shouldn't.
Interesting.
We should make the decision to go there and help if we are asked by the leading countries in that hemisphere to say, hey, America, bro, I need some help with Chad. Can you come help us? Sure, we'll come help you. Much like we did forcibly in World War II. Much like we did in World War I, when everyone came and said, hey, US, we got this problem with Germany. Can you come and help us? Sure. US, we got this problem with Germany again. Will you come help us? No. We helped you before. We don't want to do it again. Stay out of it. Then all of a sudden, Japan and them get cozy. Rest is history. US comes in and has to show everybody again, pow, 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 right? And then finally, US goes, we're going to take a stand here, and we're obviously going to have to be daddy for you guys, because fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. Or fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, it's war. And US at that point said, we don't want World War III. So we got to be daddy, because you guys can't be daddy. And we've had to be stuck in that daddy position. Now, with Venezuela, if there wasn't any oil there, yes, we needed to go there. Yes, we would have eventually gone there. Would we have gone there as fast? No. And why we need to is because it is a security threat, and it is a threat to our way of life as Americans. Because again, China wants to go there, and all these other guys want land access to America. Okay? Ending that. It's unfair to use that, though, if it is going to be used as a negative point against America, and here's why. To go, oh, they're just interested in Venezuela's oil. No, that's one of the main reasons why we'll go there. You can't blame America, because America has at its heart a capitalistic heart. So of course America's going to work at it as business. America is business. America is business. Business first. So Christianity first. At least that's the way it should be.
No, business first, but
yeah, business first.
Ahead.
So of course America's going to go, business opportunity, and we can show some power, and we can protect our butts against future threat. We're all in, baby. Let's go. Now, where America will do it wrong or do it right, and that's to be determined here, is whether or not we come in here and Trump has a chance to shine here. And this, I think, is, again, another opportunity for Trump to end his presidency with a resounding, overwhelming success. Because mark my words, I think this is where it's going to go. It's going to end well. Venezuela is going to become a power again, and it's Latin America. It's going to be a textbook for how South American countries should run and use their natural resources responsibly. And yeah, Trump is going to get a resounding success out of it, and because you're going to build a very strong partnership, and people are going to look at this and go, wow, this really worked. Now, if we allow them to be free, independent, sovereign, governing, democratic, republic nation, which Venezuela really, really, really wants, there's a lot of good stuff there. But it's a long, long, long process. And again, what makes it nice here is that Venezuela was already used to making oil. They just aren't doing it because socialism, communism doesn't work, because the government's inefficient. Mm-hmm. What's nice about it is that we won't have to pay for this. We won't have to pay for any of this stuff. And it's not a tribal country like Iraq and Iran and Syria and Afghanistan and all those tribes. I mean,
they had a really good way of life. They did. And
they did. So that's where I'm at kind of where that.
Okay, yeah, and Venezuela was considered one of the crown jewels of South America when you look at the
Yeah.
per capita income and the quality of life, and oil was like the equivalent of 5 cents per gallon. I mean, people lived well, and then you had, hyperinflation come and ravage everything. So I get that. So my issue is that I agree with you with regard to Venezuela's positioning and China and Russia wanting to have access to the United States. I'm with you 100% on that. I agree that Venezuela is a very important strategic position for the United States to have positive working relationships as well as the United States allies. So I agree with that perspective 100%. The issue that I have is and has always been is that the United States does not do anything for the good of or just because it's the right and moral and ethical thing to do. They only move when it's in their own best interest and they get something out of it. So all of the moves are always transactional. But the flip side of it is they try to make it seem as though they're moving for benevolent reasons. So I will give you this. The thing that I respect about Trump in this regard is that he says it out loud. Most presidents or most people in office don't say what they're really doing out loud. Going into Iraq was never about nuclear weapons. It was always about oil. And it was always about also installing bases in that area because now you've got quick access to the Middle East. You've got quick access to Saudi Arabia, Dubai, and all of those oil rich nations right there. And so the United States having military bases all installed throughout that region is a strategic advantage because now the United States can literally be anywhere in the world within hours because they have all of these strategic positions. So protecting Venezuela from that position as it relates to China and as it relates to Russia is of supreme importance. But don't go and take that type of action to remove their leader and to remove the person. Now, again, I'll come back to this last point, which is fine. I think that hopefully that if they work on getting Edmundo Gonzalez in or redoing an election, if there was some type of question about the legitimacy of his presidency, then redo the election. If it's pretty much widely spread. So I think there needs to be some type of diplomatic action now moving forward to say, look, people, there's goodwill right now. I would really want to hear what the Venezuelan people who are still within Venezuela's borders believe, because what we're hearing in all of the news cycles are the perspectives of people who've left Venezuela. So let me explain what I mean by that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we may have a skewed perspective because let's just say, for example, somebody came and let's say President Trump was in California and somebody from China, they came in and took President Trump out and took him and extradited him to China. I'm sure people that are expats and also people that are in places like California and New York would be elated that he was gone. But if that was the only thing that went across the news wires in those countries where he was taken, then people would think all around the world that the United States was okay with taking President Trump. So I really, really am looking forward to hearing a wide range of perspectives because you know there have been demonstrations against the United States in Venezuela for what happened. Now, any news station can find any story to substantiate their angle on things. So I'm not trying to give overwhelming legitimacy to that. But what I am saying is that there needs to be some diplomacy taking place between the United States and Venezuela to properly facilitate a fair election and where there's some type of oversight, but there needs to be more international oversight where it's the United States and other places in which Venezuela believes to be fair and impartial to come in and oversee that election. They get the new democratically elected official in office, and the United States says, okay, look, we want to reconnect the deals that we had with Chevron, Valero, Exxon, so on and so forth. Let's facilitate the contracts there and let the oil companies then do whatever business they're going to do, because the United States as a government needs to be as far away from this whole situation as quickly as possible.
I agree. I don't think we need to govern the country.
Heck,
imagine this for a second, Len, because you brought up the point of when is the United States. I know this isn't necessarily a regime change, but think about this for a second and see if this grows legs anywhere. Like, imagine if for a second the United States employed and laid down the same or similar types of policies in Venezuela right now that it did with Japan post World War II. Okay. You understand what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Because we virtually went into Japan and completely rebuilt IP, technology, money, infrastructure, and look at the way Japan and in America are today. Right?
Sure.
Look what opportunity Japan had in the 80s when Japan was buying massive amounts of real estate in America. All the things that happened. Look at how solid Japan and the United States are. Look at how powerful of a country Japan emerged post World War II as a result of America going in and saying, oh, okay, cool. You bombed us. You preemptive striked us. You got us involved with World War II. You cost us a lot of American lives. You cost us a lot of time and stress. We didn't want to be involved. But you know what? We retaliated and we used nuclear weapons on you and did all kinds of stuff. And by the way, fascinating why they chose, if you ever get a chance, fascinating why they chose the targets and why they did them that way. Right? It's fascinating. I mean, I know it's a crazy subject to talk about, but
yeah, Hiroshima and Nagasaki are forever changed. But yeah,
forever changed, right? But there's a lot of people that don't agree with us doing it. But when you look at the argument for why we did it and why it was essential, it leans more that way when you look at all the geopolitical things. Because eventually Hitler was going to get a bomb and Hitler was going to drop a nuclear bomb. I mean, eventually it was going to happen.
Supposedly, we'll never know, but
we'll never know. But hindsight is 2020. But err on the side of caution. But imagine for a second if America did that with Venezuela right now. Because what I would imagine is America goes in there and does that same type of playbook in Venezuela, and all of a sudden, think about this for a second. And this is just one piece because I talk about manufacturing a lot. What if America showed Venezuela how to manufacture the way China does, but did it double the price? And it's still 4 times cheaper to do it in Venezuela than it is America, but way better in China. We don't have to rely on China anymore. And all of a sudden, Venezuela can now diversify their economy away from just energy production, which is crude oil. Imagine what that looks like for a Venezuelan country when America goes in there and shows them how to build, how to manufacture, how to R&D, how to develop, how to do all of these things. Just like we did in Japan, post World War II. Imagine when that happens. Imagine what that looks like, what the world looks like that at that point. That's exactly what I think needs to happen, and I see that happening because of what Trump is.
That would never happen. Let me tell you why.
It would never happen because...
Here's the reason why. The context is...
But wouldn't it be a good thing?
Oh, yeah, and so would, every person on the planet getting $1 million a month. That'd be a great thing too. But let me tell you.
But it has been done before.
Okay, but here's the problem with that. I think in theory your idea is good because when you talked about the United States going into Japan and all of the infrastructure that was created and all of the manufacturing might, and one of the reasons why they're one of the biggest producers of micro technology and stuff like that, semiconductors, is in part because of the relationship they established with the United States. Okay, now the problem is that when the United States went into Japan, the whole industrial revolution was at a completely different place. And so now the United States doesn't have the same type of need for Venezuela outside of oil and gas. And so, and rare earth minerals. And so it doesn't have any economic incentive And the only way that something like that would work is if there were large stores of lithium or other rare earth minerals that was able to contribute to the proliferation of technology to give the United States a better stance. And in so doing, being able to recreate that much cheaper there. I don't see that. Now, if something like that becomes available, or if the context changes, then I'm all for the idea of working diplomatically with Venezuela, because we have common interests. We want to make sure that the United States shores are protected. Venezuela is at the tip top of South America. So there's a lot of opportunity there. I think what's going to happen is the United States is going to continue to work with Venezuela for the oil, because here's the thing. The U.S. refineries were actually made to process crude oil. And then when all of the shale oil was found through fracking, there was a different kind of crude that was discovered. And our refineries aren't really effectively working with that type of crude oil. So a mixture. So for example, when the president talks about the fact that Venezuelan oil is bad, and he makes it seem like, oh, well, we went in for different reasons, despite the fact that they have crappy oil. We actually need that crappy oil, because when it mixes with the oil that's refined here, it creates from a coarse grade and the fine grade that the United States has to the medium grade of crude oil that our refineries are actually used to working with. So we really do have a need for that type of oil. But I agree with you that there are so many reasons why working with Venezuela the correct way would be a benefit to them in the end. But I still say that we are on a very slippery slope, because here's the problem. And we can move on, or however you want to move forward. Here's the problem.
Oh, yeah.
If the Venezuelan military is behind the current regime that's in office right now, even if it's through fear, if the current military is behind Rodriguez and the current regime, guerrilla warfare is one thing that we have to worry about. Because think about this, and I'll wrap up my point. Ever since World War II, how many wars has the United States won? 0. We didn't win Vietnam. We didn't win Korea. We didn't win Iraq. We didn't win Afghanistan. We haven't won any of those wars. Now, please don't misunderstand me. I am not saying that their militaries are superior than ours. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that given the context of each of those places that I've named after World War II, the people who were embedded within those communities believed very much in the war they were fighting, and they had a lot longer, and they had a lot more to lose, and they had a lot more to live for. So they kept fighting and coming after the military, and they weren't going to quit. So by that token, the United States in each one of those situations say, you know what? It's not worth it. We're giving away too much money. Too many American lives are dying, and America's appetite for losing their young men and women in these wars that are not connected to America. We got tired of it and said, you know what? Politically, it's not prudent. Economically, it's not prudent. And because of that, we have not ever won a war since then. And so we very, very much run the risk of this being exactly the same thing if the current military decides we're going to fight. We're not going to bow down to these imperialists, and we're going to continue to fight until the bitter end. It could end up very ugly and very expensive for the United States. And they could go in and sabotage all of those oil refineries that exist right now. And Venezuela has a ton of it. So there's a lot that we can lose. I hope you're right.
I definitely agree with you. I definitely agree with you in that is a risk. That is a very measurable risk that we do run the risk of, oh, damn it, and getting quagmired down in there. 100%. I agree with you. I hope that doesn't happen. I don't think it's going to happen. And the reason why is I just don't think that when the USSR or Soviet Union fell, that power vacuum, all of those different things. This is a country ran by a socialist, communist dictator, narco dictator. Anytime someone like that comes out of power, things change. And people don't want to be in that. So it would be interesting, yes, Len, to get the perspective. And I know there's probably you're always going to have people that are going to be loyal or disagree. But I would probably say 80 to 90% of Venezuelan people that live in Venezuela, and again, I could be out of my ass on this, are probably very happy. Just because socialism and communism is horrible. People think it's nice and they fall in love with the romanticism, just like people fall into the romanticism of entrepreneurship. And we used to say this all the time, Len. People are so in love about being an entrepreneur because they love the theory of an entrepreneur and what comes with an entrepreneur: autonomy, agency, freedom, unlimited income, dreams, no boss, all that love. Until you actually have to go in and go, dang, wait a minute, I got to deal with being rejected every day, maybe running out of money every day, being on the balls of my you-know-what for a certain amount of time, risk, no paycheck, no guarantee, people saying I'm a scam, all the things that go with it. Long hours. Wait a minute, I got to work 18 hours a day and I don't have benefits and no company car anymore and no health and all the things that come with it becoming an entrepreneur. Then all of a sudden people go, oh, I can't be an entrepreneur, right? It's the same thing with socialism and in communism. Oh my God, free this, free that, all the good, lovely things. But then when it actually happens, then it happens. So I think,
and the people there, they already know what's on the other side of it because they experienced it firsthand.
They're starving.
They know that what was going on wasn't working because their moms and their grandmas and grandpas and dads lived that life. So yeah, I think it's easy for them to see that.
I think there's enough history there. Now, it is going to take some time to rule them out. And I think that's the delicate process that's happening behind the scenes right now. And I think that, look, I don't think Trump's stupid. I know he says a lot of asinine things, but I think he does have a lot of intelligent people in his cabinet and a lot of other people that are still there running the government with him.
They don't have a plan.
I think they do. And I think they look at this very long and hard. Here's the reason why I say they have a plan. Here's exactly why I say they have a plan. There's no way you execute a military operation like that, flawless like that, and not have a plan. Okay. Because the fact that you can, it
happened in Afghanistan. They went and took Saddam Hussein like that, bro. What are you talking about?
Right.
That's exactly what happened.
But hold on a second. That's a different era and a different world. Yes, we did. We went in there forcibly. When we took down Operation Desert Storm, when we went in and we took down Saddam Hussein, that was a very intrusive, very violent, boots on the ground type of approach.
Decisive and quick, though.
Right, exactly.
Shock and awe.
It was still all those things. The difference here is that Trump looked at all of that, learned from all the mistakes, took a little bit of Bush, took a little bit of Biden, took a lot of bit of our boy Obama, because Obama is real good about stealth stuff and CIA and special. Look, if Obama was a football coach, he would be special teams coach, no doubt about it, because the guy is great at using special teams in the military. Trump took all of that and went flawless victory, fatality. No one knew we were there. No one knew we went in. Lost zero assets, both physically and biologically, and no one died. And no bullets were fired from us anyways. At least that we know that killed anybody. Nothing. Boop, boop, in and out, and installed new leadership all within 24 hours. We didn't do that in Iraq. We went in and smashed and grabbed and carpet bagged in Iraq, and there was a power vacuum. And again, the tribes there in Iraq couldn't, the Sunnis and the Shiites and all these guys that have been tribal for thousands of years couldn't decide, and that created the mess. You don't have that type of tribal issue in Venezuela. They're Venezuelan. It's Latin culture. They're like this. There's no tribalness there. These guys are, all they want to do is
cartels and sunsets. And you've got factions within that group.
Yeah,
because in the absence of power, might is always going to win over.
And that's exactly why Trump left the existing military leadership there, because it gives them a chance to say, okay, guys, like Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State, said, F around and find out. Okay. And that's exactly the power, because here's the thing. Had Trump not done anything, we would still be in UN meetings like we were in 2024, we got to get this guy out. Let's put a bounty on his head and put this silly wanted poster up to everybody. Maduro probably used that as toilet paper. He probably had his subordinates print out that wanted poster that Biden made and the UN made. He probably printed it out billions of times with the Venezuelan oil money and used it for toilet paper. It's exactly what he probably did with that because it's comical.
But he took it. Sudden, but President Trump upped it from 25 to 50 million, right? You do know that,
of course.
Right?
Oh,
okay.
I do.
So he followed the
it's
same
a game,
tactic.
Though.
But okay, I'll give you that. So if he used the $50 million as a tactic to divert our attention away from what was really going on, I think that's a plausible theory. Completely understand that. I think what remains to be seen is in the absence of real power, because yes. The person that's left there, Delcy Rodriguez, she was very outspoken against the United States for what happened. And she's the person that's in power right now.
Of course she is going to be, though. She has to show face. Because here's the thing, Len.
No, that doesn't make sense, though, because this is okay, hold on. This is what would make the most sense. If your theory was right, this is what would make the most sense. She gets on national TV and says, listen, okay, I understand the optics of this. I was around during Hugo Chavez. I was around during Maduro. But considering the fact that they're all out, I have seen the rise and fall of inflation happen in this great nation. I was here when we were the breadbasket of South America. I was here when per capita income was at the highest in South America. And I saw that the other way didn't work. And I've been really wanting an opportunity to see how I can make this nation rise. And this is what I want to do. I want us as a nation to turn the corner. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to be the person that's interim in office right now until we have a fair election process. And we want people from the outside so we can regain your trust to help monitor and to show that this process was fair and that there is accountability and that everything was transparent. And if she were to openly say that, because her saving face is not calling out the United States for what they did. Because if their people were really in favor of the United States coming in and kidnapping their leader, then if they were really in favor of that, then her staying in alignment with him is a problem. Now, the only way that I could align with your theory that she's saving face is if there is internally the military faction of their leadership that's really aligned with Maduro. Yeah. And if she says that, she's putting a death bounty on her own head. That's the only way. But she's got to know what's really going on, because here's the thing. You understand, just like when you ran an office, when people said crappy things about you, some way, somehow it found its way back to you, right? Because
it always does. It always
that
does.
Are loyal. Exactly. So Rodriguez, being the second in charge in Venezuela, she knows what's going on. She knows if the military is aligned with Maduro or secretly there's other factions that say, hey, look, we want a democracy. We don't like the fact that meat cost, 1,000 times more 2 months from, 2 months later than it did before because of the hyperinflation. She knows what's going on. So she either misstepped and didn't take the time to align with Maduro, or there's some people that have military power that are in alignment with him. And if what I'm saying is true, the second part that I just said, the United States is not just going to walk in and just, have everything happen and everything's going to say kumbaya and everything's going to be good. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be messy. I think it's going to get ugly and it's going to be nasty. I hope I'm wrong. I really, really do. I hope Trump can ride out of office and everybody says, you know what? Great call. We we misspoke, and we misunderstood. You're playing chess and we are playing checkers. Mr. President, hats off to you. I don't think that's going to happen. I hope that it does.
Well, he has a track record of doing that, and he's never lost it. So I hope as well, because he's always gotten away and always came out on top with everything. I thought for sure his goose was cooked.
No,
and he wasn't getting. I thought for sure his goose was cooked, and he wasn't going to get reelected in 2024. And if he hadn't gotten reelected, he would have been toast. I thought he was staring down the barrel of a gun, and all of a
34 indictment, 34 counts,
which we all know at this point was all attack pieces. But that's besides the point, right? That's a different topic. I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We will see. It's going to be interesting.
I do know this. Is it going to be easy? No. Is it going to be difficult? Yes. Do I think it was a great thing? Yes, because now there's at least an opportunity for change, whereas before there wasn't. And let's be honest, no one was going to get him out of office because everyone is spineless except for Putin and Xi Jinping and Trump. All the other world leaders of all those other countries, no spines at all.
No, so bro, it's not about spine, bro. It's about what kind of military power you have. It's not a coincidence that the three most powerful militaries that you just mentioned.
Hold on. Let me throw one more in there. I'm not a fan, but Bibi's got a spine too. Say what you want to say about Netanyahu. Guy's got a spine. Guy's got a spine, Len. Come on, dude. That guy.
But he's a war criminal, man. You can't even.
So is Putin. And so is Xi Jinping.
I'm talking wide range genocide, bro.
Right, but Xi Jinping's committing suicide or genocide against the Uruguays or whatever it's called in that whole province in North China right now. He's killing hundreds of. You talk about regime change and talk about cultural. What is it called? Washing or whatever the heck it's called when you that's happening in China. So yeah, they're all accused of it, but guess who's not accused of any of it and has never had a record of it? Trump. Trump does.
Except for he's been, there's been conversations and overwhelming mounting evidence. He's been seen with some young girls.
So is Clinton. So it's
100%.
All of those.
100%.
Wait, that picture
doesn't make it right on any of those.
That picture was debunked. That was a pageant that all those girls were at that he was taking a picture with. Those were all pageant. That was a pageant picture.
I'm just bringing up a point, Chris.
I know. The CNN talking point of, oh my God, look at Trump with all these young girls. It was a pageant
I just
picture.
Think we need to get to the bottom of it. But let's go to Minnesota.
Speaking of getting to the bottom of things, look, okay, I knew there was some BS going on in Minnesota, but I did not know it until my brother-in-law was here.
Okay.
For Thanksgiving break. And like right on the first day he got here, it was like the day before Christmas. He goes, have you ever seen this guy named Nick Shirley? And I'm like, who's this guy? I start watching his stuff. And all of a sudden I go,
you know they're debunking that whole thing, right? You do know that, right?
They tried to, but it's all legitimate. He pulled all the records from the state. He confirmed it. He had a source inside the legislature that was leaking him all the documents. That's how he got it all.
I think the jury's still out because when you look at the daycare footage and you look at the records. Now, let me be very clear again. I am not suggesting that there is not an existence of fraud that's taking place there. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying though is that there has been a very intentional, united effort to make the situation look as if the governor wasn't aware of this years and years ago and hasn't taken steps to take steps and to take action to reduce the fraud and to eliminate the fraud.
He hasn't.
And one of the daycares that Nick Shirley went to, many of them, he went during hours where people aren't just going to let you walk into their facilities. If you show up at 11 o'clock saying, hey, and you've got 4 or 5 people with you and they've got cameras, you're not going to let them into the daycare. There's protection issues that exist there. And so the way in which he went into it was very, very problematic from the outset. And so then after that, you see people bringing their kids and you see people dropping their kids
after it went viral.
Well, all I'm saying, no. The same day, bro. The same day, there were parents bringing their kids there and dropping them off and stuff like that. So the problem that I have is this: is that we're very quick to jump and rush to judgment about the whole thing. Because when we talked about this on our previous episode, I was very clear to say, once the investigation has taken place and all of the facts come out, if what you're saying is true, there is a problem. Right now, all of the facts aren't out yet. And so what the problem is right now is that oftentimes, when you have so like here in this specific example, you have an entire group of Somalis that are being lumped in as if 90% of them are coming here to, suck off the teat of the government and take their money and send it back to a corrupt government. When the facts of the matter is that you have a long-standing history of your president taking up and commuting corruption and overlooking it and turning a blind eye on it over and over and over and over again. Do you know who Amy Bach is? Does that name sound familiar to you?
It doesn't.
Okay, so Amy Bach is the founder of Feeding Our Future. And if you, and I hope with the edit, they have a nice big picture of Amy Bach, because she is not Somali. And so what ended up happening is there was fraud, and she was the ringleader of this fraud that took place in Minnesota, and she was found guilty. And so Salim Saeed was also convicted. He worked with her, but she was the ringleader. It's so interesting that you don't know who she is, and most people don't know. And that's not an indictment on you, Chris. The fact is that if her name was Salim Saeed and she was the one that was running it, bet you would know exactly who she is. All I'm saying is that when judgment is placed on a group of people for the indiscretions and the problems that one person does, the whole group ends up paying the price. That's the main issue that I have. And so the other thing, like, for example, when you look at Trump's history and all of these people that are in his sphere that end up getting let off the hook, for example, Philp S. Formas. Do you know who that person is? Have you heard his name? Probably not. He had a Florida nursing home and he was the executive of it. And his crime status is he was convicted in a major Medicare fraud and bribery scheme. And what happened? Trump commuted his prison sentence while leaving. Now, he did have the restitution that stayed in place, but he commuted his prison sentence. And so you have story after story. Todd and Julie Chrisley, you probably know them because they were the ones who were
holding the guns.
Remember, they were the ones with the
no, that's the show,
the reality series,
the reality show. Yes,
exactly.
Yes, I remember them.
Yeah, man. So what happened? They had convictions, and they had over $18 million of fraud. What happened? Restitution, and he commuted their sentence and pardoned them. And so my issue is that when you administer justice, man, just be fair about it. It's just and so that's the only issue. So I just wanted to bring that up. I think that the whole Minnesota thing is a problem, but it's not a problem that didn't exist before. And I just think that, when there's certain immigrant groups, because of the fact that it gets to, it allows Trump to continue to pursue his immigration policies vigorously and viciously. It's just an easy way to allow the American people to get behind it. And so I just wanted to put that out there.
I think I could spend a lot of time digging up. Any of us could, digging up sentences that were commuted by both parties. Biden commuted a ton of sentences too, that were fraud and all that stuff.
Sure. And he's not in office right now. But if he were in office, I would have that same energy for him too.
Of course. We all should, right? But we don't know the backstory behind that, but I don't want to get into that. What makes it an issue about Somalians is that when you look at all the fraud cases in Minnesota, 80% of them are by Somalians. So that's why people are calling out the Somalian refugee population, because when you look at the data factually and go, okay, 100 fraud cases were committed. What's the demographics? And then you start breaking it down by groups, right? Then all of a sudden, what tends to happen is 80% of the fraud, or 8 out of 100, were committed by someone who's a Somali refugee. So that's when it becomes about race. Now, is it about race? No, I didn't mention race at all. No one's mentioning race at all. Anyways, Nick, sure,
I didn't mention race. I mentioned the Somalian.
No, everyone has. Everyone has. Now, a lot of people say, "Oh, Somalians being attacked." No, that's the problem. The problem is in that cohort, because when you look at the data, they're committing the fraud 8 out of 10 times in Minnesota. And then when you go and you look at all these daycare centers, they are empty. Now, I have 7 kids, and I've been through many daycares. And for sake of argument, I went and looked at 7 daycares in the Houston area where I'm at, and none of them looked like those daycare centers in Minnesota. I was able to walk in, I was able to talk to people, there were kids there, and I was able to ask for prices and quotes. I did the same exact thing that Nick did, except I did it here in Houston because I ain't going to Minnesota. It's too cold there for me.
Okay.
And guess what? There
Did you have a camera crew with you? And
I had my phone with me. He had an old guy with him that had data, and he stood off in the back. So even at that point, who cares, right? That's the world we live in. The guy, he's not threatening looking. How much does the guy weigh? 140 pounds, right?
No, bro.
And he talks like a very respectable guy. So here's the thing, Len. I went and looked at 7 daycare centers in my Houston area, in rich areas and poor areas. I even went in areas that are not Caucasian. And guess what? I was allowed to get into them all. I was allowed to get quotes, and there were kids there. And there are other journalists now, independent journalists, or however you call it, citizen journals, they're doing the same thing he was doing and are getting the same results. Now, here's the thing though. This does go way back. There were convictions of fraudsters in the Somalian community in Minnesota that got charged in 2016. There are local news reporters that are reporting this fraud, and it goes deaf, right? You could dig up the stories. Guess what? All the local government officials, including Tim Walz, commuted their sentences or dismissed the charges. All 3 Democratic liberal judges dismissed the charges against these people that were convicted of fraud. And then guess what they went and did? They went and just opened the same business again. You can't deny the fact that no legitimate daycare business that should have been vetted by the state can have incorrect spelling and phone numbers that don't work on their place of business. Sorry. It just doesn't work that way.
The Learning Center, that's a bad look.
And then you look at the fact that the Somalian community, Somali businesses in Minnesota made more money than the entire country's GDP of Somalia. How is it possible? It's that thriving of a community? There's no way. And if they are thriving, then why is 84% of Somalians, they're second behind Afghanis, on social services? And why are they all on social services? And why is this happening not just in one social service, but in all of Minnesota social services? Housing social services, food social services. They just pulled it. I can't remember the data they pulled, but they pulled some data that said over 70% of college funding is fraud or some kind of crap like that. And if a CEO is guilty of something, or if a CEO, for example, let's say tomorrow, JP Morgan Chase lost $500 billion, Jamie Dimon would step down, right?
Sure.
He would not stay. Guess who stepped down today and said, I'm not running for re-election? Tim Walz. That's a blatant admission of guilt. Why? Because he knows he'll get killed in an election, because everyone knows the jig is up. He's got to get out now. Just like the Enron guys, just like the MCI guys, just like Newsom's getting ready. It's coming down to Newsom next.
Yeah, he can't run though.
You saw the audit report.
He's termed out.
You saw the audit report though that just came out. The independent auditor in California. Mm-hmm. It's toast. Yeah. California is toast. And again, the level of fraud, waste, and abuse is not just, like I said, it's not just Somalians. That just means they just infiltrated that area and know how to do it, right? They just know how to do it, because the way they do it is they go in a strip mall and they get a grocery store and a daycare and what was it? Oh, autism too. Did you know, fun fact, Len, that in the last 5 years, autism has increased by 130%? How is that possible?
It's not possible. That just means that.
You know why? Because Somalians opened autism health centers.
Well, I mean,
and guess what?
Autism has gone up throughout the entire country.
100% it has. Of course.
But I understand your argument. I definitely understand your argument.
When you look at all the facts go together and they create a very, very daunting story. And then when you look at one of the final pieces and you look at the most amount of revenue that contributes to the GDP of Somalia, guess what? It's not made in Somalia. It's money coming into Somalia from America, from people wiring in money. So when you use the term industrial size, essentially what Somalians have able to do is the Somalians have been able to replicate the Italian mafia or the Mexican mafia, so to speak, in the United States, like the mafia ran in the United States. They've replicated it, except they're bilking social services. They're doing it at an even better level. They're not even doing it in businesses like the Italian mob would run the trash business and all that stuff. These guys, they're getting businesses, employing their people, staying under the government poverty line, and they're literally sitting in those places all day and signing people up for every social service possible. And then what they do is the grocery store sells the groceries to their own restaurant, and then their own people work for the restaurant that work for the grocery store that then work for the learning centers that work for the daycares, and all the kids get reported. And none of these kids are going there. None of them. It's a fraud. When you look at it, you go, you guys are pretty smart. The problem, though, is it's not a Minnesota problem. It's not a Somali problem. We can't hold them accountable for that. Now they did commit. It's the same thing as what we do in this country, which I think is backwards, Len. You'll probably agree with me. We don't punish the substance abuser. We reserve all that punishment for the drug dealer. Right? So again, we're not going to don't punish the Somalians who committed the fraud. We should punish them. But we should also, and this is where we don't punish the people who are supposed to be governing this. And this has been happening. So for example, California. So we haven't even talked about that yet. It's, what is it? Like 3 years in a row at a deficit. And now it's like what? Like 30, $40 billion of money they can't find that no one knows where it is. I know where it's at. It's in Nancy Pelosi's stock trades and Governor Newsom's businesses and his mansion and his lifestyle and his hair. That's where it's at. That's where all that money went. Len, high-speed rail in California. I've been talking about this since I started, since 2010, since 2008. You know, I sat with some of those people that work for the High-Speed Rail Commission getting paid $250,000, $300,000 a year just to kick people off their land for eminent domain. This is sad. So imagine, Len, if your house was eminent domain 15 years ago for high-speed rail and you still don't have a high-speed rail. Right?
Yeah, it's a problem.
But again, the mafia of California, the Democratic legislator, the fair, open election, California is closer to Venezuela than Venezuela is closer to Venezuela at this point. Realistically, if you look at California's ran the same way Venezuela is. The difference is Newsom can't stay in power because, thank God, California is part of a union called the United States of America. Otherwise, California would be the same damn thing. Everyone wants to complain about, Trump's going to run for a third term. You ought to be worried about Newsom and Pritzker. Those two guys. Pritzker got to lose weight, and Newsom ought to wake up to reality. And Pritzker, when he's done losing weight, he ought to wake up to reality as well. Sorry, Pritzker, I was a fat boy at 1.2. You got to lose some weight, dude, if you're a government official. Sorry, dude. You should focus on your state that's in recession. So all of this stuff, and I speak so passionately about it in case you're watching this, that's no effect. And by the way, Len and I are going to go have a fortune cookie at our favorite Chinese restaurant, Panda Inn, after this. I wish I was. I wish you and I could go to Panda Inn right now because I haven't had good Chinese food in a while.
No doubt.
But this is all geared towards the passion of this. If I'm this passionate, and by the way, if you felt me, I'm sweating right now, right? If I'm this passionate about it, how passionate must you be about a guy who's trying to raise 2 or 3 kids, 28, 30 years old in Minnesota on the balls of your ass, and you can't. And then all of a sudden, you see that social media video of, go ahead and work for me, white boy. Pay your taxes, or I'm going to, the Somalian guy.
Yeah.
What do you do? And then you see, and I'll throw it back over to you. You see Ilhan Omar, who was negative net worth 4 years ago. Now she's worth $30 million, or probably close to 10 or 20. And then goes, oh, yes, I own 5 daycares myself. Oh, man. This is I'm good. I think it's crazy because I live in Texas. Exactly why everybody wants to live in Texas. Exactly why Chevron and ConocoPhillips just said, bye California, and went to Texas. Look, I would be livid and you see it. I would be livid. And then you see these government people, these officials. Oh, it's Tim Walz. We ought to be, and Ilhan Omar, both echo the same message. And I'll turn it over to you, Len. And Tim Walz, well, if we're looking at these people, we ought to lock up all the white people that commit crimes. It's white people. And then Ilhan Omar, what's the greatest threat to America? We should be scared of all these white people, these white men in America. Excuse me? I thought you were the party of non-racism.
Yeah,
I thought you were the party of tolerance.
See,
so you don't see any of that stuff. So we talk about all this stuff. Look, Ilhan Omar's a fraud. Tim Walz is a fraud. And the entire Minnesota legislature is probably a fraud, just like California.
Okay, so I probably would say I agree with about 60 to 70% of what you've said in terms of the fraud, the waste and abuse that's happening in Minnesota. I'm not going to argue facts. I'm not going to do that because, the reality is the reality, regardless of what side of the aisle it falls on. And so the issue that I have, and I certainly want to move on to a couple of other things with the limited time that we have left, is that it's what happens. The history that America has is when a particular group of people get lumped in with the bad actions and the bad actors of individuals. That's when crimes against that entire community starts to erupt. And so what's beginning to happen right now is you're seeing an overwhelming increase in hate crimes towards Somalian people. And so I just think that when it comes down to the challenges and to the wrongdoings of individuals, and when it comes down to the criminal actions of individuals, then that individual should be held to the full extent of the law for that individual. But what ends up happening, and this country has a history and a legacy of that, is that one individual, 2 people, 3 people, a community of people that legitimately did these wrong things aren't the ones that are the only ones that are being impacted. It's the entire group of people. And so in terms of what you talked about with regard to Ilhan Omar talking about white men are the problem and Walt saying that white people I think that's a woke talking point that I completely disagree with, because it's just the antithesis of people historically saying grouping all black folks together. I have an issue with all of it. 100%. So what I think needs to happen is that those individuals that we've been talking about throughout Minnesota, they need to be held accountable. And we need to make sure that we're very careful, especially mainstream media, about how those stories are covered, because you'll always get fringe individuals that decide to take action on an entire group of people. And I don't like that, regardless if it's Somalian folks, women, white folks, black folks, Latinos, correct, Asians, Native Americans. Right. It doesn't matter. Right. And so we've got to be very careful about the rhetoric. And when I say we, I'm talking about mainstream media that has access to millions of people. They need to be very careful about the rhetoric on both sides, because all it does is creates division, and it creates a way and an excuse for some whack job to go out and do harm to somebody that's completely innocent and has nothing to do with it. So that's all I want to talk about that. I don't know, man. We don't really have a whole lot of time left, but I definitely, before we wrap up, I certainly want to talk about the Affordable Care Act and all of the things that's starting to happen with them. Right now, there's an enhanced ACA premium tax credit that expired on December 31st. And
so you can't claim that for last year, or you can claim it for last year?
You cannot. And so now, there's subsidized enrollees are going to see an average premium cost rise by 114%. And so the problem that I see, and I want to get your perspective on this, is that when the Republican Party ran the first time that the Affordable Care Act was enacted, they said it was terrible. They said that it was an indictment on the healthcare system because of the amount of money it took out of taxpayers' pockets. And then when Trump ran for his second term, he said that he had a plan that he was going to put in place. And so now he's been in office for an entire year. There's been ample opportunities to make changes to the Affordable Care Act. But up until now, I haven't seen one plan that supersedes and is better, that helps people have access to healthcare that are the less fortunate. Because again, you and I are going to be fine because we have the financial wherewithal to be able to have great healthcare and all of that. So we're talking about, the lower middle class, poor folks and folks that don't have the capacity to afford the quality healthcare because of the fact that it goes up so much every single year. Without these subsidies, they're going to fall by the wayside, and people are going to go back and end up having different ailments like heart attacks and strokes and cancer, and end up with those types of ailments that are chronic. They're going to end up dying because they don't have the right type of health care. And so without a plan, I don't understand why they wouldn't just roll back and the existing plan for another year, kick the can down the lane for a year, just like you do with the debt ceiling, until you come up with the viable plan, even though you had, years and years to come up with the plan. What's your perspective on what's happening?
I think this is a fascinating issue. It's definitely something that is a big conundrum. It's paradoxical. It's a conundrum. There's so many different things at play here with this that created such a complicated process. Now, look, I have been working since 1999, 2000. I've had health insurance benefits since 2000. And what I can tell you is that every year they go up. Before affordable health care was around, they went up every year. I remember walking in, and my HR person, Tom Kirsten, he went, I would think I was like 22, 23. And he's like, here's your new benefits program. Congratulations, it went up by $220 this year. That's life. That's how health insurance works. And this was like, I don't know, 2003, 2002, somewhere around there. I went, damn, this sucks.
Healthcare in America has been a problem for a long time.
It's constantly going up. It's never, affordable healthcare comes out and it's gone up even faster. Health insurance premiums go up every year. It's almost like health insurance.
But not since the Affordable Care Act. There's been a lot of subsidies that have kept the prices.
If you make over $100,000, you're not getting a subsidy. So I mean, 100%. If you're making,
but that's not our issue though, because we can afford it.
Right. But here's the thing: if you're making over $100,000 a year, and you're living in California, you're broke. You're poverty. So
I agree. So sure,
we need to redistrict. We need to reassess what poverty is in America nowadays, because those rules changed post-COVID. So if you're making $100,000, you're barely going to survive, and you don't qualify for a subsidy. Yeah,
and the median income is like what, $65,000. So we're talking about the fact that a lot of people are even, 10% of the population make six figures or more.
Make six figures. Okay.
So you see what I'm saying? So it's a problem. Yeah. It's a universal problem.
So this is a problem. But again, this could be solved, I think, in a number of ways. Again, I'm not a genius. I'm not in government, but I think it could be solved in a number of ways. But I think that we can have what people promise as a universal healthcare system. Now, a lot of people like to think that universal healthcare works, but it doesn't. In the countries that do have it, it's pretty shitty.
They're much smaller too. I mean, like Norway,
and they're much smaller.
Finland, and Sweden.
They're much
They have
smaller.
great healthcare, but their taxes
They
are
do.
ridiculously high.
Right, and also that too. In other words, too, and again, here's what's nice though about Netherlands. Let's say you're paying high taxes and all that stuff, right? And you have healthcare there, which is decent. But at the same time, if you make $130,000 a year or less and you have 2 kids, you don't pay taxes on that $130,000. You only pay taxes on the money you earn over that 130. So I could live with that. Here, there's no way. So yes, it is a massive problem. These tax subsidies, they were temporary anyways. And that's the problem. The problem is that nothing's ever temporary. Once it becomes a subsidy, it's always a subsidy. So these are COVID era subsidies that should have went away anyway. So the fact that they're going away, we could use the same argument. You knew these subsidies were going away. Everyone knew they were temporary. It was temporary, so you should have operated under the rule, not the exception, right? Which is they were going away. But here, there, nor there, that's not a solution for a lot of people. So for a lot of people, here we go. The government should not be making solutions for them. Instead, what the government ought to do is the government ought to balance the books, get the budgets correct, and return that sovereign wealth to the United States instead of foreign countries. And also, we should put a lock on immigration right now and make it very strict, like we used to do in the past, because we can't take anybody else in right now. We're seeing that. Inflation's higher in this country because we print a lot of money, but it's also high because we've taken on so many immigrants. Nobody thinks about that. Like everyone thinks that just because these immigrants get in, we're not going to feel it. I'm sorry, but if you gain 20 pounds, you're going to feel it. Well, it's just 10 pounds. You're going to feel it. So if you bring in, I don't know what's the number, how many hundreds of thousands of people came to America in the last 5 years, you don't think we're going to feel that? Of course we're feeling it.
That's not the reason why that's not the reason why healthcare. Because they contributed so much in terms of
right. That's not the
money to the economy.
The problem is that this country is spending money foolishly. We could, for example,
agree with that.
For example, the auditor said how much waste and lost money in California? 38 billion or something like that. I don't remember what the number is. Right? Okay, but very simple exercise. Mm-hmm. Figure out how much money is unaccounted for in California, right? Then take that number and throw it into ChatGPT and say, hey, if we took this much money and put it into healthcare subsidies, what would that do for the average person? And I bet you ChatGPT would get you an annual savings right away. See, that's the problem. We aren't spent. We're just going, oh, we need more money. We need more money. We need more money. We need more money. It's exactly the same problem in the healthcare system. The healthcare system doesn't.
But why hasn't there been another proposal?
I don't know.
By your party?
Because quote unquote Elon Musk, government is unfixable.
Yeah, but there's people there that there are smart minds that could come up with another solution.
Right. But we haven't though. So instead of us eliminating FICA on your tax on your payrolls and eliminating Social Security and say it's up to you to do it, we would have so much more money.
What I think about healthcare, I think there needs to be a fundamental shift and allow the private sector and capitalism and human nature and psychology to take over the entire process
and put a cap program in there so you don't have abuse of the system because you need it. Look, I know that's anti-capitalism and I know that's anti-libertarian viewpoints, but there are certain things you have to put a cap on to govern human nature. That's exactly the point of the Constitution.
I think you wouldn't necessarily have to put a cap on it because if you had one institution that performs surgeries for, I think we've got a little bit of an overlap, but I think what's going on, Chris, is that if you had, let's just say, Kaiser that offered a surgery for, that's typically $500,000 for a heart surgery, right? But then you had another company that says, hey, we'll charge you $150,000 because, the amount of money that's being made and the profits that's being made, we can, take on more people at a smaller margin, but we can help more people get access to healthcare. Man, everybody would flock to that company as long as they had the infrastructure and the systems. Yeah. And so allow capitalistic forces and allow innovation to be the forefront. And then you wouldn't necessarily have to put caps on it because competition takes care of that. Because by the same
Here's the problem with that.
Okay. Tell me.
Here's the problem with that. That will absolutely 100% unequivocally, it will work, Len. I agree with you. It will work. It will 100% will work. And I think that we're on the precipice of that happening in a lot of industries that are where people are just fed up. Education's another one of them. Right? Where there's going to be 100%. A groundbreaking alternative that's going to flip that industry on its head. Same with medical. The problem is, will government stay out of the way and stop protecting the old cohorts and not let them die? Because we would have been off crude oil 50, 60 years ago if the government would have not interfered and let the crude oil companies die. If we would have let crude oil companies die, we would have had alternate energy. We probably would have been energy independent by now.
Sure.
Same exact thing with everything. With the government is always the problem. It wants to come in and pick the winners and save people and subsidize. 100%. We can't let this. If America would have let the auto companies die when they died, if America would have let the banks die, it would have been so much better. There would have been a lot more pain in the interim. Yes,
but I agree.
Yes, there would have been, but it would have been a lot cleaner. Because the thing is when you need to lose weight, what's the first thing your doctor says if you're overweight? You got to lose weight first before you could do anything. That's step one. And number one right now, America is just as fat physically as it is fat in debt. And we're fat in debt. We're fat in debt because of government spending. And us spending our money all over the world and getting nothing for it. So if
including going and putting all of those
ships
in Venezuelan waters.
100%. 100%. Well, how much money did it cost us to steam those 3 aircraft carriers down to Venezuela for the sake of getting Maduro? At the end of the day, since it's already done, I'm sitting here going, you better get our freaking oil out of there because I want a return on my investment, baby.
Man, we're going to foot the bill, but getting back to the healthcare thing, there's got to be some way where the private sector comes out, or the Republican Party needs to come up with an alternative, because the thing that's happening right now is just to allow the subsidies to go away. People that were already struggling with inflation, losing their jobs, and all of those things, they're ending up worse off, and there are going to be more people that die. There are going to be more people that are sick, and so again. I'm not here. I'm offering a solution. I'm not just saying here's the problem. The solution is allow things to be kicked down the road for another year until you guys figure out something better, and then let the House and the Senate vote on that, and let the representatives hear from their constituents, and then move forward. But they've been talking, and they've been doing the same thing they accuse the Democrats of, is you're just talking about the problem and not offering a solution. And they did the same exact thing, because there is no other solution right now. And so let the private sector take over.
This is for you, Len. This just dropped today. Bureau of Labor Statistics. You ready?
Tell me.
Ranked fastest growing jobs in the next decade with median pay. And this is the problem. Here it is. You don't want to know what number one is? But not even close. In fact, if you add up number 2, number 3, and number 4, it's roughly equal the size of number 1. You know what it is?
Probably something with AI technology.
Nope.
Healthcare.
These careers could add the most jobs over the next decades. Home health and personal care aides. 739,000. And here's the problem. The average salary, 34,000. That's the problem.
Yeah, I know.
The labor need
that's
is
my
there.
Employee base right there.
The labor need is there, Len, and the pay base is not there. Who the heck can survive and do that job on $34,000? But then when you go down the tier, you know what number 2 is? Software developers. You know what a software developer on average? 133,000. I'm going to go to software development, baby. Because I got 132,000.
The Bible says the poor will always be among us, and there's always going to be people who need those different tiers of jobs. And here's the other thing, though, because here's one thing I'll tell you, because obviously I have a home care agency. So the challenge is this, that if we were to pay our workers what a software developer would get paid, we would have to charge our families $30,000 a month for someone to come into their home.
Wow. And see, that's where
you see what I'm saying?
Government should be. Yeah, see, that's where the government should be subsidizing properly. The government should be taking sovereign tax wealth that comes in, not even tax wealth. We don't even need taxes in America. The government should be taking sovereign GDP that gets generated because we have excess and take that and reinvest in the country.
Yes,
reinvest
and the people that
entrepreneurs
put their
like
blood,
you,
sweat, and
entrepreneurs
tears
like
into this
you,
country.
vetted citizen entrepreneurs with a proven track record of successful business like you, Len, and go, hey, Len, here you go. That's what I'm, instead,
right.
It's whoever can fill out an application and qualify.
Yeah. And, and the problem and the challenge is, going back to your point of proper pay for the workers, is that when a person is in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, they're no longer in their income producing years. And so for a company like us, because it's non-medical, it's not subsidized by insurance. And so because of that, most people have to pay out of pocket. And so in order for us to be able to provide a quality service that a family can afford, unfortunately, the people who work have to get paid less money. And that's just the fact. And so to your point, it would be wonderful if people, as they were working and earning income similar to Social Security, could have some other type of fund that would allow for them to age in place so they don't have to go to a nursing home, which costs even more. But now you've got medical issues and skilled nursing needs that are happening. And so if people were allowed to age in place, they would age more gracefully. They would age without the types of costs, the exorbitant costs that are necessary for skilled nursing types of facilities.
Yeah.
And it would be great. But, unfortunately, we can't have it the way we want. And so we have it the way that it is, man. But all that being said, at the end of the day, Chris, you were on fire, man. And I hope that what you are believing about Venezuela and how it turns out, I hope that you are right. Unfortunately, history has shown us otherwise. So I hope your president,
yes.
I hope that your president has a plan to make it different this time. So with that being said, go ahead, man. What are your last closing thoughts?
I was just say, I'm definitely on a I'm definitely, Len, I acknowledge that I'm on a slippery slope because my predictions are very, very slippery. But at the same time, I just think there's a lot of different things at play. Now, the best part about it is, like you said, Len, very on fire today. I'm very passionate about everything whenever I do it. I don't ever shortchange it. So it's just, if you watch me in anything I do, that's how everything is. But I just think the most important thing that anybody can get out of this is watching this today is seeing this. These are two massive things that are very hot in the country right now. A lot of people pay attention to. I just hope everyone was able to see this type of interaction because this is really what it's supposed to be. Because at the end of the day, your brain might be thinking more, and my brain and Len and I's brains are thinking more about, okay, how do we really fix these problems and how can we get around them? And that's really what people ought to be thinking is, okay, we are not agreeing, but we both agree there's a problem. We both agree that it needs to be fixed. Okay, let's talk about it, and then let's figure out and throw solutions on the table. And then at the end of the day, we can all see which solution is the best. That's debate, and that's dialogue, right? And that's a conversation, and that's really the problem we have in America is we just keep picking these sides for the benefit of our own opinion and being right. And it's not about being right and wrong right now. It's about what's the most effective for everyone to be healthy and prosperous and not be pissed off at each other in America.
Yeah. And I think, and to piggyback on your point, I think what we need in America right now more than any other time is for people like you and I who fundamentally disagree to have a platform where we listen and process the arguments and the way the other person thinks so we can have a more clear understanding about our perspective and about the opposing perspective and do it in a way that's respectful and do it in a way that is open-minded to what the other person's saying. Don't think for 1 second that I haven't listened to what you said and processed what you said. And I also know you have listened to me and you've processed what I said. And then ultimately, hopefully time will show that some aspects of what you're saying is correct. Some aspects of what I'm saying is correct, but at least we can engage in an honest dialogue and not just live in our separate echo chambers and never hear each other's point of view.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. And to reinforce what you said again about affordable healthcare subsidies, sign an executive order, figure it out. I understand it's more tax dollars. I'm not against that, or I'm not for it, but I'm not against it. But at the end of the day, the baseline is there's no reason why anyone living in America that's a citizen should go without healthcare. I'm sorry. There's
100%.
It's just regardless whether you did it to yourself or not, because you drank and you smoked and you whatever it is you did, it's still fundamentally, we make so much money in this country. You should not be denied that. Just like you shouldn't go hungry in America either. There's just no way. There's so much money here. Mm-hmm. There's so much money. But the problem is that, again, term limits would eliminate a lot of this. But we're out of time, Len. And
no doubt.
Go ahead, Len. You were closing us out before I interrupt you to our next diatribe.
It's all good, man. I'm glad that we can have conversations like this, and it's also good that we could vehemently disagree and very be very spirited in our perspective and still remain friends. And I hope that people out there will learn from what's being displayed on this platform. That's the reason why we do this. We do this so we can have honest conversations. And so we hope that you will like, comment, subscribe, and then find other people in which you disagree with and exercise the process of having conversations with somebody in which you disagree and learn how to do it in a respectful manner. So with that being said, Chris, man, until next time, it's always good talking to you, brother. And we'll talk soon.
Happy New Year, everybody. Have a great one.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Family Office.